Three, two, one. Good evening. This is Paz Simpson, aka the Happiness Engineer, your LDP for Big Happy Consultants. And you are with us for another episode of You Don't Have to Be Perfect, You Just Have to Get Started. And we are pleased to announce we have a special guest with us today. Someone who has not only built a brand for herself, but has made a name building a brand for others, has made a name not only seeing herself succeed, but to help others succeed along the way. So I'm excited to say that today we have Miss Amelia Moore with us. So Amelia, you know, welcome to the show. Welcome to day 8, which is actually the final show of this series. We
Final
will
show.
we are excited that we have gotten some great feedback, from people. So we will continue to do the show, but we just won't do it on a daily basis. So we will, start to do. You don't have to get start. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to get started to be a weekly show on Tuesdays. So we'll do Takeover Tuesdays. So we'll continue to bring you some amazing guests. But today, I get to say we have my big sister on, Miss Amelia Moore. So Amelia, welcome to the
Yes, hi.
show. You know, man, why don't you tell them just a little bit about yourself before we really start to dive into some of the amazing things that I know you can talk about to help entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. Well, pause first on behalf of just all my team and everybody that supports me. We want to say thank you to you for giving me a platform to just continue to discuss and help and empower others to just fulfill their dreams. I stumbled into the career that I'm in. I was a supportive wife, and my ex husband was a producer, and I decided to get into the music industry because I was a model. And when I got into it, Time Warner had a temp program. Shout out to DJ Tate, and shout out to God rest the dead DJ Fumi. He was an A&R coordinator at Black Music Department in A&R. Shout out to Kevin Woodley. He didn't want to do the job. I wanted to do the job, so he quit and made me a permanent temp. And that was the beginning of my musical career. And then from there, I went to G Street. I managed Cellar Dwellers and the first Asian hip hop group, Mountain Brothers, Shannon Sanders, who wrote all the hits for India Ari. And then from there, I became GM of Rough Rider and president of Rough Rider Lifestyles and the Bikers business model. Why came to me and said, I had all these bikies, Millie, I don't know what to do with it. And I created the business model that still exists in today. And I'm aspiring now to open my own Rough Rider to the Rescue chapter in my hometown, New Bedford, Massachusetts. So I'm hoping to manifest that. And I think if you were to surmise me, I am a woman empowerer and a child advocate, and I love my brothers. So,
Amen. I
yeah.
love it. I love
Yes.
it. I love it. So I love that you mentioned some of the things that you've done in the past. And we'll definitely dive back into that because I think that's very big. But I'd love to talk to you, about some of the things you're doing right now to empower women. With your CEO versus CEO book and your motivational speeches and the things that you're doing. So, I'd love for you to speak some life into, our
Certainly.
female CEOs, and talk about what that looks like to be a female CEO in a male dominated business.
Well, first of all, shout out to Saida. We in 1996 did a book called Transforming Your Business Today. And we had 96 business women talking about what they need to do to transform their business. And I had the closing chapter. And as Saida and I were talking about it, we realized that, when you walk into an office as a woman in any corporate environment, I don't give a damn what it is, the first thing the men see is that you're a woman. So then I said to Saida, I said, you know what? We're not CEOs, we're SheEOs. Never denying the mere fact or the most obvious fact that we are women. But in that, SheEO versus CEO teaches you how to communicate better. It's not about competition, ladies. We got to get away from that. It is about the collaborative of minds, and it has absolutely nothing to do with gender. And so, I teach women how to define themselves. You know what I mean? Like for me, when I was at Rough Rider, because I was a tough cookie, and those of you that know me know that I was, I used to get that nasty B word, bitch, bitch, bitch. And I was like, hold up. Before you call me that, know what you're saying to me. You're calling me a beautiful, intelligent, talented corporate hustler. Yes, I'm a bitch. I'm not only a bitch, I'm that bitch. So it kind of stopped people from calling me that because I took the power away. You know what I mean? And that's what redefinition is. And women, we have the power to do that. On top of that, I think a lot of women don't understand the power of positioning. It's one thing, I always used to joke at Rough Rider, I was the gun with the silencer on it. I always hit my mark, but nobody knew because I didn't jump in the pitches. I didn't ask for the pendants, the necklace that everybody got. I didn't ask for the plaques that everybody was getting. And consequently, 20 years later, almost 30 years later, I realized the ramification of this. So, ladies, hold your position, be in those pitches, get those plaques, and get the recognition for the work that you do. It's critically important. And then I guess the last thing that I teach women is how to sift men. I love my brothers, but you guys are so quick to put us in a box expeditiously, excuse me, expeditiously. But we as women, because we're nurturers, we tend to just receive and accept men for who they are and what they do. But that's not enough. So, ladies, I'm going to give you the four categories real quick. It's the emperor. That's the person that takes you underneath the wing, right? And wants to see you fly, but be careful of the false emperor. He's the one that wants to get close to you to find out your weakness, only to take you down because he don't want you there in the beginning. The second one is the enforcer. Ladies, you know who he is. He's the one that's always pulling you to the side and telling you what to do. The good enforcer, like my brother Paz, who always gives me great counsel, right? Tells me from a man's perspective what he sees I'm missing. But for those men that don't like taking orders from a lady, they will definitely tell you what they need to do to get a false sense of empowerment, a false sense of power. But if you don't want to micromanage your men, you better macro manage it by saying, listen, bro, don't worry about what I need to do. I need you to do XYZ elemental P and give them a couple other jobs on top of that as a message to the rest of the men that want to tell you what to do and don't have the authority to do so, what to do. The third one, my brothers always laugh at, that's the egghead. Ladies, there are gentlemen out there that just won't like you because you're a female. Accept that. Embrace that and identify him as such, especially for my project managers that do that meeting where it's nothing but men and you have to present it. Before you do your presentation, acknowledge that egghead and say, hey, Paul, I know you're not going to like this, but give me 5 minutes to get everybody on the same page and I'll give the floor to you. What that does is automatically subjugate and also give you an opportunity to redefine. Because lots of times, what happens to women in business is once a man says, I don't like it, the group says, I don't like it, and they push on. There's no quantification of whatsoever what that disdain was. But if you identify the hater right from the very beginning and he says he hates it, there's no surprise. But at the same time, he must now say why, because you already said what it is. And these are some of the minute skill sets that I put in my book to help women understand the power that they have and how to utilize that skill set so that your skill set is based on your skill set, not your gender.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the way you're speaking, power into women, and allowing them to find their own, strength in in the corporate world, because everyone is necessary, right? They're
Agreed.
all, so to understand, and see the greatness in all people, makes your team even stronger. So I love what you're doing here in a manner of empowering. But you said something, that I didn't want to glance over. that you helped put together. Actually, before we even go there, you said something even more powerful, that by not putting yourself in the pictures, by not taking the plaques that you've earned, right? You sort of hampered your positioning. So I'd love for you to speak truth in the power for women who are coming up after you. So not only can they um, avoid those mistakes, but also can see, your journey.
Well, ladies, this is what I'll say to you. Because women, we always say, how can we help? So the first thing I want you to do is take help out of your vocabulary and say, how can I work with you? How might I assist you? Because that's the correct positioning. When I love my brothers, but when you say help, it's a subordinate positioning. And if you're their equal, you've already put yourself subordinate. So you must be conscientious of your positioning. On top of that, I think, I was during the Rough Rider era, I was so focused on getting the job done that I didn't understand the fluff and stuff. You know what I mean? I didn't understand what I call the show and tell, the importance of show and tell. But show and tell 20, 30 years later is what matters. It might not matter for the moment because everybody that's doing business with you knows you're the person to do the business with. But 20, 30 years later, when you're not necessarily doing that business, but you had an impact on the business and want to continue to conduct the business, if people don't know your resume, you're only as good as who knows how good you are. I tell my clients that all the time now that I'm consulting. You could be the best in the world, but if you're unknown, what really are you? Nothing. Nada. So it's critically important to stay humble, but at the same time, play your position. So jump into those pitches, ladies. Definitely ask for those plaques. And if necessary, pay for it yourself. But definitely make sure that you're getting the accolades and the positioning or the establishment of position, right? The recognition from your peers. That's why just recently, shout out to WSA Writing Sessions America, they gave me a Quality Culture Vanguard Award. And of the many awards I've received in my career, this one means so much to me. I'm a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. But this one meant everything to me because it was my peers that knew what I did for the past 30 years. And yeah, for me, it's always about quality over quantity. You can know a million people, but if they don't do nothing for you, you just know a million people. However, you could know three people, and those three people constantly put you in the room, constantly make you have those conversations, constantly give you direction, like my brother here, Paz Simpson, does to all of us. That's how you continue to grow. So, in this new evolution of life that we're all experiencing, put in quality, not quantity, because we've been duped with this whole quantity thing and it doesn't add up to anything.
Oh man, I love it. I love what you're talking about here. Quality first, and just understanding the power of relationships. We mentioned this a couple days ago. The two most important things in the world is information and relationships. Right?
Absolutely.
Information to be able to make things happen. Right? And the relationships that are going to allow you to make those things happen, right? Because even if you know it, we've seen people get blackballed out of rooms, so that information means nothing. So I love that you mentioned, understanding the power of your image, right?
And
Because go ahead. Because
no, no,
a
go
lot
ahead,
of times,
finish.
yeah, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, because I'm not always someone who likes a lot of attention. That's why even doing these lives and everything else, even though some people tell me I'm pretty good at it, it's always me stepping out of my comfort zone, right? Because
Yeah.
my comfort zone is really being the man behind the man behind the man. So but understanding the power of positioning and imagery, right? So,
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that, because we don't take our image serious a lot of times. and we don't understand, everything that we do is in brand, right? Even when we don't think about it. Like I realized me running around that I wasn't dressed how I wanted to be. So to be in brand, right, I had to pull out a jacket that still keeps me fly, right? Always keep the money hat on. Shout out to Abundant ASF, my daughter, Ayana Simpson, and her partner Markel, for keeping the hat fly. But you know, just understanding what is a brand,
You know,
and I'd love for you to explain that for people, you know.
I will, but there's a couple of things that you said that I really want to harp on because you were so poignant on it. First of all, yes, everybody get comfortable being uncomfortable because that's where growth begins. A mentor of mine, Shelley Zalis from the Female Quotient, taught me that. And I forever, whenever I'm feeling uncomfortable, acknowledge that I'm about to embark on something that I'm going to learn about myself and also grow my brand, you know? Because that's critically important. And let's talk about branding because for so many, I still stay in the music and startup business because a lot of startup businesses make the same mistake that independent artists make, as it relates to branding. First of all, consistency is key. If you call yourself doo wop, don't call yourself wop do on another platform. It doesn't make sense. Okay. So if you cannot make sure that every single one of your social medias have the same name, make sure that they're interrelated, that the name that you want is in there so that people see the consistency of your brand, first of all. The second thing is start with a word that defines you. Okay. My brand is always being helpful. I am a source, a resource of information, and a conduit of possibilities. So understanding that and that I can take one idea and magnify it because I think big, that's what I start with. Then from there, when you're talking about branding your brand, right? You start with that one word and then you create a sentence. Like for my business, my branding business, Buzz Builder BMC, our tagline is we get your buzz up. Because no matter what I do for my clients, they're always a lot more known after I finish working with them than when I first started working with them. Then from there, because I'm a youth and woman empowerer, make sure that you're doing things that emphasizes that. Like, shout out to Elisa Pratt from McKinley after school program, right? That was the sister that I helped empower. And our step team, McKinley Steppers, that winded up becoming TOC, transitioning our children. And it was 8 middle school girls that winded up stepping against gun violence. And we stopped gun violence for 276 days in the South Bronx. What? So these are some of the things that you do, and this is how you continue your brand. So now when I talk, that action actually was enabling me to become a lifetime achievement recipient from the president of the United States. you know so it's all of these things, but if you don't connect the dots, you wind up fragmenting your brand. And what happens with that is your audience now has to figure out who you are. But when you give it to them on a plate, they ready to eat that meal and they will constantly regurgitate that meal and that messaging every single time. Like you, Paz, the happiness engineer.
I appreciate it. You're right. One of the things that I am is consistent in my branding, right? There's even when I give you my other moniker, the LDP, which is the lead dream protector, because our company doesn't have a CEO. We have an LDP, which is, our top executive. I make sure to give you the happiness engineer first. All my brands, all are consistent. Happiness engineer leads big happy consultants. Our funding side is joyful funds. So everything, makes sense. Even when my son stepped into his own thing, I had him stay in brand. so that when they notice him, they know that he is, part of something bigger than himself. So yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because it's so easy for us, to take on different personas in different spaces, and don't see how that can, not always help us, but more times hurt us, because, you know, um, we feel like we need to take on these alter egos. But
And you
if
know what,
we
Paz?
go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no,
Uh,
go ahead,
you
please.
you made a very important point as far as being able to do a multitude of things. Like I got 20 jobs, you know that. Outside of helping the youth and now outside of helping artists, outside of helping businesses, I also help community. I also help the youth. I also help, the churches and et cetera, the homeless, you name it. But the key is no matter what you do, find that one thread, that one passion that relates to every single one of the things that you do, because that is the core of who you are. And that's why for me it's always being that helpful resource, because that's who I am.
I love it. I love it. Having your taglines, we have we have so many of them in my company, right? We say we live by peace to live in peace. That's, for my internal customers, or employees, right? For our external customers, we say we make sure that you smile, right? See miracles in life every day.
Amen.
So um knowing who you are and what you can do is so, so important. But I don't want to miss the opportunity, to talk about building a big brand, because you were very instrumental, in building the Rough Rider bike crew, which became even bigger than the label itself, because the bike crew lives on,
Yes.
while the
Yes.
music, is not as relevant. I can't say the artists aren't as relevant, because they've moved on to do other things, right? But as a label, Rough Riders doesn't hold the same weight that his bike crew does. So, what was it like, to be there, right, from the very beginning,
Well,
when and
it
and
was exciting.
and to actually be a part of what it took to grow a brand that's outlasted all of you guys at the label, right? Because
Exactly.
you
So
guys
all
are all
right.
doing different things.
Yeah, shout out to all my bikers from Friday. First of all, shout out to DJ Tate. DJ Tate was the person that introduced me to Siobhan DNY. And I had the meeting with Siobhan initially, and I was just supposed to be a consultant. But as I looked at them and what they were getting ready to embark, because that's when they signed to Def Jam, the production, because they were a production company. That's when they became the label. And I was like, guys, this is way bigger than me being a consultant. I think it makes more sense for me to come aboard of the team. And that's when I became GM of Rough Rider. And then when we started doing the logo and the t-shirts and the campaigns and all the revolutionary things that we did, like we was the first label that released a compilation of new artists and it went gold. Our first week it was 386,000 units sold. Okay, we were also the first record label to attach a order form for our merchandise in the actual CD. And I remember fighting about that because I was like, no, we need 6 to 8 weeks just in case this thing jumps off. And I swear to you, X is dark and hell is hot. We had about six of those big white sacks of 4x6 postcards full of orders. It was insane. And I was so glad that we said 6 to 8 weeks because we delivered everything within 6 weeks. But had we said 4 to 6 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks, we would have never delivered on time and that would have been chaos. But to get to the bikers, I'll never forget it. Why came to me and said, Yo, Millie, because that was my name, not Amelia, not Mill. It was either Mills or Millie at Rough Rider. And he was like, I got all these bikers all over, but I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know. And at that time, street teams was the big thing, right? So I sat back and I thought about it, and our street team kicked butt. But I said, if we used our bikers like that, and we utilized the membership of our bikers and turned it into a profitable thing, then they would be paying themselves. We wouldn't have to pay them to be a street team, but at the same time, we would have the sickest street team anybody in the game would have. And they did. And so basically, what we did was this was the business model. It's very fundamental in that we had the members, right, pay a membership fee to belong to the biker club, right? Biker chapter. And let's just say the fee is $50 or $100, right? And let's just say we've got 1,000 members, right? Now we've got $50,000. So we're now going to do an after party with all of our artists that our chapter is going to do. And so what they're going to do is they might invest 10,000, 20,000 in that, right? And pay our artists to be at the after party. They had the exclusive because they were our artists, and have the consumers come in. Now, the membership owners that contributed, they would get their $50 back because that show would make the money, and we would just recycle that same $50 to keep on doing it. So the it actually became a money making venture for our bikers, and a certain percentage came back to the organization so that we can sustain ourselves. And that was it. And it's still striving. And shout out to Jaji, Queen 1100, and the king himself, Wink 1100, and all of my bikers. Like my father at the time, who was passing from cancer, had to stay home, right? And I moved to Massachusetts, and I used to do the conference calls. And my father would get a great kick out of it because this is Scorpio from this place, or this is, Mace from this one, or this is, Big Dog from this one. Forgive me if I forgot everybody's names, or Romeo, or, it was just crazy to see the check in, from all over. And I'll never forget one time, my parents and we went on a cruise, and we were in St. Thomas, and there was a buggy that actually had a Rough Rider Lego logo on it from our bike chapter. And I wouldn't go anywhere until I met that person because I wanted to know A, how they got their sticker, and B, if they had a chapter. And yes, they did. So it was really amazing to watch how, when you talk about fellowship, and that's something that's really big with me, and unity, and just really convening all of us together for a purpose. That's why it's still existing today. And shout out to Rough Rider to the rescue, because that's the next phase in the Rough Rider life. And a lot of people, even though I'm not no longer involved, a lot of people ask me why I still have the passion and the love. And that's because we did something that no one else was able to do. We actually gave homage and respect to the streets and to those that have that come up, that have nothing. But we show them that it's never where you're from. It's always where you want to go, and do it. And we taught so many people so many different flip games. It's incredible. I mean, look at Antonio Simmons right now, or DJ Superior, or just everybody that's doing something. I'm so proud of all of y'all because I know where we started, and to see them where they're at, it just warms my heart.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm so grateful, to have you on and to talk about, some things that were revolutionary. DMX was probably the first hip hop artist I remember, to drop 2 albums in a year, and the momentum that caused and created, because we were so used to hearing our favorite artists drop once every few years. Nas is still one of my favorites, and I've never got a Nas album every year. So at the rate and speed that X was dropping product was amazing, and to be there during that time, but the game has changed a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we'll get into that, but there's one thing I definitely want to say, because this is like indicative of what we did, how we broke the mold. Not only was X one of the first artists to release 2 albums within the same year, but he is the only artist that renegotiated his contract 6 months after signing it. because, this is the thing that I love to teach people. When you negotiate your contract, negotiate it to renegotiate it, which means that there are some things that you're going to say these are deal breakers, but there are other things you're going to accept, understanding that, once you hit that performance rate, you're going to renegotiate it. And that's how you close deals, y'all. So many times I look at young artists and they want everything. That doesn't make any sense because you're not going to get it. So, what you do is you look at the things that are your deal breakers. No, like if I want to keep all my publishing, that's a deal breaker. However, you can record re recording rights, and then boom, you have all your publishing from the re recording rights. But understand how to negotiate. And the best way to negotiate is to negotiate to renegotiate. And that's what we did 6 months later, simply by saying, our artist is not happy. I remember when Ray came in and said, Amelia, what are we going to do? And I was like, Ray, just tell him your artist is not happy. You know what I'm saying? And, X was the type of artist, I loved him to death. But when he said no, it was no. And what was crazy is that first album was so plosive that they already had the second album set up and ready, like as far as people that wanted to contribute in it. And they had all these dates aligned. And so when you tell an artist at the peak of their career that they're not going to want to do nothing, and you've already negotiated so much stuff, uh, they're going to come to the table. And that's what we did.
I love it. I love it. I love that you paused me there, to talk about negotiating to be able to renegotiate. You know, because you're right. A lot of artists miss the mark because they think that they have to have it all in at once. To know what your talent is, and then to know what you actually can do, and to bet on yourself.
Yes.
To bet on yourself to be able to not only hit those marks but exceed those numbers so that you can renegotiate. And I love that you talked about re-recording rights, because that's what you're seeing a lot of artists do now. Some of them don't sound as good, but I won't say those names. I won't hurt their feelings. But you have had other artists like a Taylor Swift, who's re-recorded almost all of her music so that she can have full control. So
Well, shout out. Yeah, shout out to Chops, the producer of the Mountain Brothers. They were the first Asian hip hop group to be signed, right? They were signed to Rough House, but Rough House wanted to do gongs and all kind of gimmicky stuff, and that wasn't who they were. They were real hip hop heads. So when I took on the management of them, what we winded up doing, again, branding. We connected with all of the Asian student communities in the colleges clear across the nation, and all of the Chinatowns clear across the nation. And that's how we winded up doing our tour. And that group actually winded up opening up for Tribe Called Quest. So again, we wouldn't have been able to do that had we not gotten our re-recording rights. And see, when they did the first album for Rough House, they did it in their studio. So it was just repressing their masters because that was the re-recording rights.
Oh, that's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. And just even understanding that, right? They didn't even have to. They repressed the masters, and now they still, without having to redo the work, because it was recorded in their home studio. So that's genius, and I'm so grateful for you to be able to take the time and to share that, that jewel with artists that are coming up, and people who just want to understand the music industry better. The game has changed so much, since digital streaming has become, the main way that artists connect with their audience and everyone else. So how do you see that affecting, building a big brand, whether you're building a brand for being an artist, or building a brand, being a normal conventional business?
Okay, so there's been a lot of dialogue with this, and I'm glad that you asked me this question because I'm seeing a lot, and I'm going to say that again, a lot of mistakes as it relates to artists and utilizing the internet. Guys, yeah, Some people do get paid, but that's because they have the funnels and they've poured in money into the boosting and everything else, so they're being recognized by some of these platforms as a leader, but they're few and far between. Okay, so the best way to utilize the social media is to keep it as a promotional tool. Okay, and look at some of the outlets like Bandcamp that pays you $9 of your $10 that you sold a record for, and you get it immediately. There is no long wait, so you can take that money and flip it. You know, another thing is, stop giving the whole record. Okay. It's one thing to have your record if you're an established artist because people are going to buy that stream anyway. But when you're a new artist, if you get people accustomed to not paying anything for your music, they won't pay anything for your music. So it's critical to put like a little dollar amount to it, or 50 cents, or anything minute to that price. It's not about devaluing it, it's a matter of putting value to your music. And you do it from the pretense of, listen, I just need you to support me. This dollar is not buying the record. I'm giving you the record, but this dollar is showing the support so that I can galvanize other support. Because if I can raise $5,000, $6,000 from a $1 investment, that shows the powers that be that I have a buying audience. And that's all that matters. But if you don't show that you have a buying audience, how can you go to a sponsor or another branding company and say, I can make you money? How? Now, the other thing is connecting the dots. I find that a lot of artists are not utilizing all of the tools. There are tons of distribution outlets that are out there, but I see everybody use the same distribution outlets that are not paying you. Stop. Okay? Find the ones that do pay you. I'm not mentioning names because we're not having no liability here. But there are some that are pay you quicker. Okay? The other thing is understanding and targeting your audience. You have analytics on every single one of your social media. If you're not paying attention to those analytics and what makes it escalate and what makes it deflate, you are not doing yourself a justice. Like, I know for me, when I do a live or when I show my face or I show pictures of me and my friends, I get more views than anything else. So when I have a real message that I want to project to people, I show my face and then give the message because I know that that's what the draw is. So find out what your draw is. Okay. Find out why people like you. Find out why people are loving your music and give them more than that. I think one of the best examples is D1. This is a kid that did a song about the student loan, winded up getting a deal, and then left that deal because it wasn't his life, and winded up doing his own ministry, and now he's bigger than life. Or Joyner Lucas, another gentleman that knew exactly how to market and brand himself, and when the labels were not doing it, but they wanted him at a point where he could negotiate his own terms because he had already proven. See, in this business, you are a question mark until you're a statement. I'm going to say that again. You're a question mark until you're a statement. However, if you come into the game as a statement, a proven, notified fact, A, I sell records, or B, I packed houses, or C, I give a hell of a performance that everybody wants to watch. Hmm? That's your value. And
I
utilize
love
it. Never forget that all of this technology is a mediator. But when you want to direct directly to your consumer, that direct connect with all this technology existing, peer to peer marketing is still number one. Meaning, if Paz tells me something, I'm going to take more heedance to that and more credence to that than I will watching a YouTube ad.
I love it. I love it. I love that you mentioned that because those things translate to traditional business as well.
Yes.
Not just being an artist. Understanding all of those things. Who's speaking your company name and why? What does who is your target audience and why? Right, knowing your ideal avatar, right? A lot of people don't know who their ideal avatar is, so they think they're making music for everyone, or they think they're doing business for everyone. Like what we did in the beginning of the week, we knew were for startups. What we did towards the end of the week were for more established businesses. So our target audience changed, right? The people that we were speaking to changed. The messaging that we were looking to put out changed, right? But we still, even after you get started, there are times when you feel like, you still got to be perfect. So you got to remind even those of us who are in business, you don't have to be perfect, right? Sometimes we just got to keep going. We have to keep starting. We have to keep pushing forward. So I loved, all of the things that you mentioned to our listeners today. You know,
And
um, Go ahead.
there's two more things that I really want to make sure that, when you talk about branding, understanding that conversion is the most important number you have to pay attention to, because that is the experience, that is the impact, and that is the exchange. If your conversion rate is not high, you need to evaluate why. It could be your messaging, it could be your delivery, it could be your product. You don't know until you know. So make sure that when you have people that are buying your product, follow up and find out why they bought it. But more importantly, the people that came to your page but didn't purchase, find out why. You know what I mean? Be that green apple getting ripe, never that ripe apple getting rotten. You always have something to learn about yourself and your product and your brand.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You always have something to learn about yourself, your product, and your brand. That is so true. That is so true. And understanding these things. So I'm glad that you're really honing in on these things for business owners, because every day is a learning experience. Because if we're not getting better, sooner or later we're getting beat, right? There are companies that were amazing companies in the 90s that are no longer here with us right now, right? Blockbuster, you know, uh, God rest his soul. He was a good friend of my father. They're probably in heaven laughing together right now. But Crazy Eddie, was another big, right? So there are a lot of different big brands you can think of that didn't last the test of time because they had no stickability. And
Right.
Greg Reed says stickability is parallel to adaptability. So being able to adapt in today's era. So, as a brand, what do you think? Brands should be thinking about when they are looking either to build a brand in today's era or to adapt their brand in today's era, because what worked in 1990 to launch DMX won't work in 2024 to launch his son if he wanted to come out. Right. So what would you suggest to a brand, whether they're artists, whether they're business? What would you suggest they think about when looking to establish their space in branding?
Well, first of all, what I find with most businesses, they don't do a SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You must do that at least monthly or quarterly. You look at your company's strengths and be honest with your company's weaknesses, but then also evaluate the opportunities that your company has to grow, and also really take a good, strong look. And this is something a lot of people don't do, especially when they're successful. And that's why many get blindsided. The threats that could possibly come up that's either emulating you and doing it one step better, or maybe younger than you, or maybe older than you that saw what you're doing and that they could make it better because they're older and now is kind of taking a little piece of you. Okay. I remember, one time we had to say we were the first doing something because we were the first and other people were starting to do it. And nobody else could say that. So then that quantified us. The other thing I think what brands don't do is understand the outlets that they're using. Okay. I had a client once that had a product, fantastic product, and she was doing well and she was on Instagram, but she wasn't utilizing Instagram the way it needs to be used. If you're on Instagram and you're not doing a live, a carousel, a reel, a post, and a multiple. That's the carousel. If you're not doing that within the week, you are minimizing the optimization of your visibility because each one of them has its own algorithm. And so by you utilizing every single one of them, you are now present and in every single one of those algorithms. So they look at you as being a viable person. And so your messaging starts going out stronger. And a lot of people don't realize this. The same thing is understanding if you want an 18-year-old, you don't market on Facebook, you market on TikTok. But if you want a 30 something year old or a 50-year-old, you market Facebook. You don't do TikTok. If you want women, Angie's List or Pinterest or any one of those is where you need to go. So understanding the tools that can magnify your messaging is critical. And then the other thing that I see, unfortunately, too often is that businesses, especially young businesses, especially, don't understand the importance of copy. Okay. It's one thing to have a call to action, and it's another thing to give somebody a purpose. And so, lots of times, if you can make your business give somebody a purpose, you're going to win more and you're going to have a higher conversion rate than just saying, good. But if I say, not only am I going to make you feel good, but I'm going to make your community feel good because this is a shareable product. Now all of a sudden, the picture's bigger. You're not. It's not just about you. And now all of a sudden, you've kind of given somebody a purpose. Because if I don't know about it, I'm giving you the call of action to let somebody else know about it, seeing how you're the one in the know. That's marketing. That's conversion. That's audience participation. That's audience engagement. That's incentive. And more importantly, that's authenticity.
I love it. I love it. Right, being your authentic self. People don't buy products. People buy people. So I love that you mentioned that. Uh, one of the things I think made DMX so real, God rest his soul, was he was his authentic self. You know, he would, he would bark. He would, he would pray. He would do all of those things. Never seen anyone hold the stage like him. And he did it by
Never will
himself.
neither.
No, no hype man, no nothing. Just him and the DJ. You know, and and nothing like that. So I love that you're talking about being your authentic self. As companies grow, and businesses grow, having that authentic self starts to change because more personalities are now being added, right, to these companies. How do you um, suggest that a leader, business owner, CEO stay true to what that authentic self is as the company starts to grow?
Well, it's critically important for businesses to understand what their corporate DNA is. And what I mean by corporate DNA is What is it about your corporation that makes you uniquely you? It's about it's the freedom of ingenuity. It's the freedom of just being able to do and expand, right? At Deloitte, it is about financial literacy and about how do we get the rest of the world to understand that financial literacy is equally important, and how do we empower people to be financially literate. And that's why you'll see a lot of the events that Deloitte puts their money behind has that undertone. So it's really assessing what your corporate DNA is. And as your company grows, if that DNA starts changing, again, going back to the messaging, making sure that you inform everybody that it's changing. You know, I think the best way to take a look at it is, in fact, Google. When it first started, it was this small little company, right? It's a monet. But DNA has still stood the same. They're the genius. They welcome genius and innovative to try to be different. And that's the tools and everything else. Always thinking the corporate DNA. And to me, that corporate DNA is the one thing that's given them the longevity that they have. And if you look at record labels, you know, even if you look at the joint venture era, right? When you look at cash money, you says what was Sir Luke's Two Live Crew, his label, you know, each one had their own identity, or Rockefeller. Each one had their own identity. And so when you looked for that type of music, you went to them first and then you partied. And that was their corporate DNA. So corporate DNA is critically important for expansion and growth.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you. And I told you before this started that this hour would go quickly,
Okay.
and we're coming closer to the end of the hour. So before I ask you another question or deviate somewhere else, I want to make sure that you tell people how they can, buy your book, uh, how they can get in touch with you, how they can get your services, all of the ways that they would need to connect with you in order to do business with you.
Well, it's very simple. I'm now transitioning to shout out to Marva Allen for Wordy. I'm going through the process of hopefully being a Wordy publisher, independent author. Wordy is WORDEEE. All you independent publishers, look her up. She's got an amazing platform. So, right now, if you want to know my book or you want to get a copy of my book, just SHEEO, that's SHEEO, at gmail.com.
That's awesome. Awesome. And
You know, my is very simple. We go in on the business, so, and I stay with you as long as you want. And then, as far as my consulting firm, it's the buzz builder at gmail.com. And it's very simple. I mean, or you can just hit me up on any one of my social medias. I'm Amelia Ismore. So that's AMELIAISMORE, because I'm more than what you bargain for, and I'm your host with the most.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm so excited that we were able to bring you to the people, and I told you this hour would go by quickly. We're excited that we're still going to continue to do this. We said that we would give you 7 days of this, getting feedback and seeing that we are being able to help people move forward by bringing the many people that I've been blessed to know in my lifetime, to you, and allowing them to share from their experience to let you know you don't have to be perfect, right? You just have to get started. right? And today we had our sister Amelia Moore. We have so many more great guests to come for you in the future. We're still going to keep the same time, the God hour, the 7 o'clock hour, 7 p.m. We're going to do Tuesdays. So we'll look for us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. That way you know, the we're ahead of what that hump day, right? We still have enough days to make some money for ourselves in a week. And then we can also reflect on what's going on in our our first day of the work week, right? So reflecting on where we were and projecting to where we're going. So I'm excited about that. So as we get ready to close up on this hour, you know, Amelia, are there any words that you want to give to the people before we go through our normal closing routine together?
Yes, I just want to let everybody know that you can do it too. And don't use the word try because try leaves an opening for failure. Always say that you're working on something. Okay, you're not trying to accomplish something, you're working on accomplishing something. Be the green apple getting ripe, never the ripe apple getting wrong. Keep God in your heart and good people in your cipher, and you will succeed. That's all I got to say. And stay focused
I
and
love
keep
it. I
your heart.
love it. I
Keep
love it. I love it. Right? Keep moving forward. That is so so important. I love what you said, everything that you said to the people. So I want to for shouting out and showing up. I want to thank you for all the information that you gave. I want to thank you for empowering the women, empowering the artists, and empowering the entrepreneurs. That came and tuned in today, and that will be able to tune in again as they go to our YouTube site, and then we share this information over and over again. We end our day. We want you to do what every other guest has done with us, right? We are going to say my personal manifesto together. I'll give it to you first,
Yep.
and then you can say it right after me. So my personal manifesto is simple: is I love me, I'm worthy. Some people may not like me, but I don't care. But the people that matter will be glad that I'm here. So I want you to say it with me, Amelia. Ready?
Yes,
I
sir.
love me.
I love me.
I'm worthy.
I am worthy.
Some people may not like me,
Some people may not like me,
but I don't care
but I don't care
because the people that matter
because the people that matter
will be glad that I'm here.
will be glad that I'm here. And I love you.
Yes, and we were so glad to have you here on You Don't Have to Be Perfect. You just have to get started. We are so happy that you were able to share your expertise and your genius with us. We are so blessed that we were able to learn from you and be able to take those nuggets in and apply them to our lives and our businesses. And I am so excited for what we will be able to do for the future. So, anyone who is in business, whether you're an artist that are looking to expand your buzz, if you are a business that is looking to grow your audience, if you are a sponsor, right, that is looking to get involved in big projects. Amelia has some amazing projects that she's connected to. So please reach out to her at thebuzzbuilder@gmail.com and find out all the ways that you can get in contact with her and get involved with some of the amazing things that she's doing. So, on that note, I'd like to say you don't have to be perfect. You just have to get started. If you like these episodes, please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend so that we could all grow in the end. Peace. Almost